I'm Stan Alchemaid, I'm a veterinarian, and I'm actually the head control judge for this competition today. I've always worked with horses right from when I was a kid in Australia. In practice, I worked with horses pretty well exclusively, and my wife is one of Canada's previously top horsewomen, so I got dragged into this sport because of her. Main thing is to determine whether the horse is fit to continue in the competition or not. Yeah, we're here as advocates for the horse, and a horse is not going to go on unless the control judges are absolutely certain that horse is fit to go on to the next veterinary control point. We're looking for metabolic problems, we're looking for lameness problems, we're looking for back injuries or back problems, we're looking for girth problems, and we're looking for injuries to limbs and legs, etc., etc. So, yeah, we've got to make sure. Now, this is a sport where you can scratch the paintwork a little bit, and you can dent the fenders a little bit. You know, so it is a determination, is that horse fit to continue, even though it might have had a bit of a bump or a lump or a scratch or something. They're all very nice things to be able to do it. Sorry, I hate to say, the biggest thing is rear end in the saddle. A lot of time spent working with your horse so that you and the horse become a team, because that's what you have to be. And if you look at it, most of these people, for every mile of competition that they do, they've done at least 4 or 5 times that amount of mileage, yeah, in training and doing other things, etc., etc. So, yeah. Well, I think it depends on which level you're at. Initial horsemanship, and that's what we're trying to teach with things like set speed, etc., is to teach the horsemanship required or necessary to go on to higher levels of competition. It is necessary. You can't go at high levels of endurance competition unless you have very good pit crews, unless you understand your horse, unless you understand how to work with your horse and all the things you have to do in order to get through the competition. And that includes feeding, electrolyting, cooling, all the bits and pieces that are necessary to get that horse through the competition in a safe and fast manner, because after all, it is a race. Well, it depends. Again, at very high level, I want to make sure that I've got pit crews, one person at least who will take the rider and look after the rider completely, while the rest of the pit crew looks after the horse, cools the horse, tries to get its heart rate down to the parameter as rapidly as possible, because until the heart rate gets down, they're still on ride time. So the faster you can get the heart rate down and get that horse into its hold, the less ride time, the lower your ride time is. Water, cooling, yeah. Now, there are a lot of other ones too. Cooling as you're coming into the vet check. A lot of the top riders will get off the horse and actually jog beside the horse into the check, so that they're off the horse's back and they're getting the horse down to, particularly if they've got a heart rate monitor. Again, there's a lot of the top riders who will make sure they hit that vet check basically at the heart rate parameter. We've had less problems, particularly metabolic problems, etc., since we've started using electrolytes correctly. And that's probably the main thing, is to get people to understand that they should be starting electrolyting their horse from the day before the ride until the day after the ride, and right through the ride. And most people don't use enough electrolytes. I think initially we were always, go back 20 odd years ago, before Gail Ecker did all that work on electrolytes for the Atlanta Olympics. If we go back to before, we were a little afraid of giving electrolytes to horses that weren't drinking. We were afraid that it might draw fluids out of the bloodstream. It doesn't. It doesn't. So we know now that you can give electrolytes, and as soon as that horse starts to drink, those electrolytes will be available and do it. So you've got to electrolyte. The other thing you've got to really make sure of, and this is a problem with new riders, if I've got a new rider, I'll ask them, are they electrolyting? Then I'll say, I want to see the electrolytes. Because most new riders have heard that you should be electrolyting the horse, but then they go to the tack shop and they buy racetrack electrolytes, which contain bicarbonate. Racetrack horses, standardbreds, thoroughbreds, they run anaerobically and they become acidotic, so you need bicarbonate. These horses run aerobically, they become alkalotic. And if you start putting more bicarbonate into them, you just push them over the cliff. And early on, we had some real messes with people, saying, yes, I'm giving electrolytes, but giving the wrong sort of electrolytes. One of the things that they do interval training, but again, it's doing a lot of conditioning, long distance conditioning, getting that horse that it's fit to do it. If we look at it 100 odd years ago, horses did 50, 60, 80 miles a day every day, and that wasn't abnormal. Today we sort of think that doing an 80 or a 100-mile ride in a day is, and it is in some respects, more difficult because horses aren't doing all that everyday training. So you've got to do a lot of training. That's the most important thing. They are three different rides. Endurance is really, if you like, a race where the first horse over the line that is fit to continue is the winner of the ride. The set speed has limits of shortest. You can't get there less than this time. You can't be more than that time to get to the finish line. So they are moderated and modified because of the speeds that they're capable of traveling at, and that's why they're called a set speed ride. They're really an introduction to learning the horsemanship required to go on and do endurance rides. Ride and tie is just a lot of fun. It's two humans, one horse, and it's a combination of running and riding to get to the finish line. The only real requirement for that sport is the fact that at the midpoint of the ride, whoever rides the horse in has to run out. So they have to switch. Other than that, you can ride or run as far or as little as you like. all three of those, as far as the veterinary control side of things, they're all done under exactly the same rules. So the examination and control of the rides is exactly the same in each case. So they have to have a saddle. They must have either shoes with heels on them or some form of cage, tapadera or something if they don't. That's why a lot of them running in running shoes will have a cage. And they must wear a helmet. Anytime that they're on a horse, on the grounds or during the competition, they must wear a helmet. That's the only three things. Other than that, they can have whatever sort of equipment or whatever that they want to use.
Right.
Leg protection is perfectly fine, and so you do what you have to do to protect your horse and make sure the horse gets through the competition. Well, I mean, in general, it's going to be an Arabian. Now, that doesn't mean that it has to always be. There are lots of other horses that have been good endurance horses. But if you're going to buy a horse to go into endurance and go to higher levels, you probably should start off with an Arabian because they're the ones that are going to do it. One is the fact that they are desert bred, and so therefore they are very heat tolerant as far as heat, which is always one of the big problems with heat. Is one of the big problems in getting the heart rate down. While they've still got a high body temperature, they're not going to get their heart rate down to the parameter. Arabians, because of their size, have a greater surface area to body mass than larger horses. So again, they're capable of cooling much more rapidly. Arabians and those horses bred from Arabians, like thoroughbreds, etc., are the only natural grays that do not have solar gain. In the Arabian breed, there's no such thing as a black Arabian horse. The other things Arabians do have, because of the shape of their chest and barrel, they have approximately a 12% greater lung capacity compared to body mass than most other horses. And they also have about an 8% greater stroke volume, heart pumping ability on a body mass basis compared to other horses as well. So they are the ones that are ideally suited to doing this type of competition. Great group of people, fantastic sport, love being up close to these very athletic horses. And I get into some magnificent areas of the world that you wouldn't go to normally, that people wouldn't get to. I've been up to the snow line at Mount Adams in Washington State, which is an area where even just to hike there, you have to get special permission in order to do it. At the Pan Americans at Trout Lake in Washington, we had a vet check at the snow line on Mount Adams. I mean, how can you ask for neater things than that? I've been out and done the Quilty in Australia. I've been all over the world doing rides. I've been to Iceland and did a 50-mile endurance ride on Icelandic ponies north of Reykjavik. Why not? That's the fun. It's because of the fact that we all camp out in an area. We're not staying in hotels and this. We're all camping. We have fires around at night, so we'll sit around the campfire and we tell stories and lie to each other and drink and do all those horrible things. But it's a very different sport from that point of view. So that's why I said initially, people I think is the main reason that I'm in this sport for a start. Second is the horses, and then all the technical stuff that I can use and bring to it after that. But the people is what keeps me in the sport. And the biggest thing is talk to people. If you want to get into the sport, look, there's nobody here, there's no competitor here at this who won't give you advice. I'm not going to say it's always good advice, but there's no such thing. They will. This is one of the sports where there's nothing hidden. People. The aim is to get everyone through, and they want to get everyone through. I don't know whether it's worthwhile telling the story on thing, but one of my earliest experiences with this sport, and this is, I don't know, 25 years ago or something, was a 100-mile ride, and it was being done up in the Beaver Valley. And the gal who had been running first all day long came into the final vet check, 17 miles from home, and a horse is throwing a shoe. Unfortunately, the blacksmith is at the base camp, at the home camp, the finish point. And to come around the road, it's about a 26, 28 mile trip around the road to get to. The girl had been running second all day, about 15 minutes behind her, rides into the vet check and says, "What's the problem?" She said, "My horse is throwing a shoe and I've got to wait until I can get the blacksmith here." Well, the second girl, and a lot of sports would have said, "I got her now. She's going to have to wait. Do you know what the second girl said? She said, "Well, I've got an easy boot here. Do you want to see if it'll work?" Gave her the easy boot, put the easy boot on. The gal who put the easy boot won the ride. And I said to the gal who was second, I said, "Why did you do that?" I said, "You had a chance of winning. Why did you do that?" She said, "I wouldn't want to win that way." That's what this sport is. That's what's neat about this sport.